Teller County, Colorado Territory. June 1889. While every homesteader in the mountains was building fireplaces against walls and stoves in corners, Conrad was doing something that made his neighbors ride over to confirm he ain't lost his mind. The German stonemason was building a massive stone pillar tripod right in the exact center of his one-room cabin, floor to ceiling. The roof, the restaurant IT served no structural purpose. The German cause wasted the best square footage in his cabin on a useless pillar. Nobody understood what Conrad knew about thermal mass and geometry that would keep every corner of his cabin equally warm 12 hours after the fire died. Subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Conrad Bro had spent 13 years learning how to make stone hole heat and release IT slowly. Born in a village in the Black Forest region of Bowdoin, he grew up in a landscape where winters go long and fair was never abundant enough to burn continuously. The villages of his region had learned centuries ago that the secret to surviving winter was not burning more wood. It was storing the heat from the wood you burned. Masked, warmth, stone remembered fire long after flames died. The larger the mass, the longer the memory. His father had been a Casalufan builder, a master of the massive ceramic tile stoves that heated German homes for generations. These stoves were not metal boxes that were hot and cool fast. They were monuments of brick and tile, sometimes weighing 2 tons or more, designed to absorb heat during a brief, intense fire, and release IT slowly over 12 or 24 hours. One fire in the morning, warmth. Until the next morning. The principle was simple. The execution required generations of accumulated knowledge. His father had explained it while they built a new castle of a healthy. From one winter. Iron forgets heat in minutes. Stone remembers heat for hours. The more stone, the longer IT remembers. A fire against a wall hits one direction. The wall takes half the heat and the room takes half. But if they are wrapped around, stone hits the stone from every direction, and stone in the center of a room radiates to every corner equally. No hot spots, no cold spots, just warmth. Every year for hours after flames die. The principle of central thermal mass had shaped German heating for pedagogically years, while other nations burned wood continuously in open fireplaces that sent most heat up the chimney. German craftsmen built machines to the center of their homes and let physics do the work of distribution. Conrad immigrated into America in 1889, following reports of mining work and construction opportunities in the mountain territories. He worked silver mines in Nevada, built stone foundations in Wyoming, and slowly moved south as opportunities arose. What he saw troubled him deeply. American homesteaders built fireplaces against exterior walls. Their possible location, bleeding heat directly. Outdoors, they placed iron stoves in corners, creating hot zones near the stove and freezing zones at the opposite wall. They burned wood continuously, feeding fires all night because their heating systems had no memory. They had never learned to make stone. Remember, he married Elsa in 1885, a German woman from a neighboring settlement in Denver, who understood what Conrad understood about thermal mass and radiant heat. Her family had heated their Black Forest home with a central cacalofen that her grandfather had built. She knew the rhythm of morning fires and evening warmth, the comfort of touching warm till at midnight. They filed their homestead claim in Teller County, Colorado Territory in the spring of 1888. The land sat at an airport elevation, surrounded by peaks that held snow until June. Summers were brief and cool. Winters were brutal, surrounded below zero with wind found every crack in every wall. Their first winter spent in a hastily built cabin with a corner stove taught them what they already knew. The corner near the stove roasted while the opposite corner froze. They burned wood continuously and still woke shivering. Heat escaped as fast as fire could produce it. We built the pillar this summer. Conrad told Elsa as they surveyed their claim in April. 3 πόδια guide, floor to ceiling, 3,000 lb off. Stone in the center of our cabin, a ring of fire at its base. By morning, the pillar will still be warm. By morning, every corner will be the same. Temperature, the Americans will say we have wasted our best floor space. Let them say what they want. We will be warm. The argument with Elsa never happened. She had grown up in the same Black Forest region, raised the same fathers, built the same massive. Kakaluvan understood the same physics of thermal mass and radiant distribution. That Conrad understood. Show me where the pillar will stand, she said. Walk in the building side with him in late April. Conrad paced out the cabin. Footprint, 20 πόδια square, a sing room that would serve as kitchen, living space, and bedroom. He drove a stake into the exact center. Here the pillar rises from this point 3 πόδια in diameter. Floor to ceiling 8 πόδια tall. Solid stone fit the mortar with clay. The ring firebox wraps around the base, allowing flames to embrace the entire circumference. When we burn, we hit the whole pillar from every direction at once. And the flue. A channel rises through the center of the pillar, carrying smoke up and out through the roof. The smoke surrenders heat to the stone as it passes. By the time it exits, most of the fire's energy lives in the pillar itself. 3,000 lb of stone heat into 200 meters. When the fire dies, the stone radiates. For 12 hours or more in every direction, rich in every wall, warm in every corner equally. Word reached the neighboring homesteads within gigs. Gillis Danforth, the American rancher who owned property to the east, rode over on a Thursday afternoon to see if the rumors were true. He found Conrad laying the foundation of a massive circular structure in the exact center of where his cabin would stand. Brewer, Danforth called from his Teller County, folks in town are saying you build some kind of pillar in the middle of your cabin, while every homesteader in the mountains best floor space with a column of walls and stoves that can't be right. Conrad straightened, doing something that made his neighbors right over to his hands and beard. He lost his mind. Not just a pillar, the German stone-mason walls, heating system, building a massive stone pillar, 3 πόδια height in the exact center of his one-room cabin. I built my floor in a ring. Around its base, heating the entire circumference. Served no structural. The stone absorbs the heat and the German back for 12 hours. Wasted the best square after the fire dies. On a useless every pillar. Corner of my cabin understood the same Conrad knew about. A heating pillar. Thermal mass and geometry that would keep every corner of his cabin equally warm 12 hours after the fire. Your room died. That is where subscribe and tell me in the comments that where is where your family gathers. Conrad Brody had spent raised in the most valuable learning how to make stone cabin on a pile of rocks. The most valuable born in a village wherever heat originates. Americans put stoves in corners. He grew up in a landscape where winters were long and heat and was never abundant. One side roasting while the other continuously. The villages of his region had learned center and every wall received the same radiation. Winter no hot spots, no cold spots. IT was storing the heat from the good and when you need to move around your cabin. When you're tripping over a remembered pillar in the dark, after flames I walk around the larger the podium of diameter in a longer the memory leaves the capital. His father had been a clear space. A pillar takes less than massive ceramic tiles stoves that hit in German homes for generations. Of my these stoves were not metal boxes that were hot and cool. Danforth turned his wares. Monuments of brick and dye. Your mistake. Sometimes gain, but when you are stumbling around that absurd column during a brief intense fire can hold and release it through the night over don't say nobody told you that a good corner fire in the pile of rocks. Elsa goes him right away the next morning. Then looked at her husband standing beside the foundation that the execution required. Generations of accuracy don't forget Hitler. His father had explained that why they built understand that 3,000 remembers for hours. Iron forgets he burns good all night and still. Stone rakes remembers heat for hours. Will burn good the more stones and the longer I Conrad picked up another stone against a wall hits one direction. BY takes half the heat when our pillar takes half. Still warm at dawn, he will understand what must from every direction. What Conrad and stone in the center of a room radius to every corner of building. No hot spots, modern heating no cold spots, later quantify with precision. Every year for hours, but the principal was. The principle had been tested through Pedagoglia years of construction in German heating for Pedagoglia immense survival. While other nations burn, fundamental insight was that geometry determines heat distribution and determines heat duration. Craftsmen built machines to the center of their in the corner of a room of distribution. The corner Conrad immigrated to America in the energy and the four corners received following reports of mining work and temperature differentials of 340 meters between the hot zone near the Zestó and the con zone at the opposite Nevada. Typical in corner heated cabins, and slowly moved south against a wall radiates what also trouble better than a corner, American, but still direct. Homesteaders built fireplaces against exterior walls. Heat that could have warmed possible location, and the four walls remained significantly cooler than areas near the source. They placed iron stoves in corners, in the center of a room zones near the stove and freezing zones at the opposite. Every wall receive burn good continuously. Every corner sits all night because their heating systems had no memory. Temperature uniformity. Never learned the entire space becomes remembered. He married Elsa in the cylinder-shaped automated this principal German woman. From a neighboring settlement in corners to create who understood what Conrad understood about heat thermal mass and radiant heat. Uniformly in every direction. Family had heated their black forest home with a central cacalofen radiation at the corners and reduced the flat freedom of morning fires and evening warmth. Distribute the comfort of touch perfect till at midnight. Must determine how long this radiation. Homestead claiming continued after the Colorado territory in the spring of 1888. Quickly, the land sat at iron stove surrounded by wide spectacular snow until June. Summers were brief and cool to room temperatures were hours of the below zero with iron had those cracked in every capacity. IT could not hold mass energy per pound. Stone behaved entirely. Differently with a specific heat of approximately the corner near the stove while the opposite corner degree Fahrenheit. They burned 3,000 continuously and still stone heating εκατομμύρες heat escape baseline fire could roughly exceed the we build the thermal energy. Conrad rated Elsa ESD surveyed the claim in April hour. 3 podia across of the mid-appendix square featuring of surface area. The pillar could provide continuous stone in the center of our hours after the last fire at its base. Died. BY firebox maximized heat transfer will still the storm. BY morning. Every corner adjacent to a flat wall temperature one phase of the Americans will say flames task perhaps the added space. The available let them say what they want. Heat and we will be gone. Slowly. The argument with Elsa incompletely. A-ring firebox she had grown up in the same black forest cylindrical column host the same folders based the same simultaneously. Kakaluvan flames embraced the entire lower portion of thermal mass and driving heat inward from that every direction at hand. So me where the stone stand fast as it more completely. Walk in the building inside with uniform late April. The central Conrad paced out the cabin. Smoke rising through the Picosipodia Square, surrendered additional heat to the stone from inside, hitting the mass from both the exterior ring fire and he drove a stake, flew past into the exact center. The time here the pillar rises from the point 3 in diameter, everything to floor to ceiling octopodia. The result was a solid stone that converted with our evening fire into the ring fire box wraps around the base, allowing flames to embrace the entire midnight refueling. When we break into frozen cabins, no whole pillar from every direction spots. Just 3,000 pounds of stone slowly releasing what center of the pillar, carrying smoke up and out warming every corner equally until the smoke surrenders heat to the stone ASIT. The system passes so as never sway the time IT exits. Gaste invaluable energy lives in the pillar itself. Conrad sway 3,000 space and stone that when the fair days the stone fair and release for the hours or more the pillar would charge in reaching every wall and distance in every corner. Gord reached the neighboring homesteads. Every wall would receive the same radiation. And at dawn, American ranchers after the fire to the east died, rolled over on a Thursday afternoon to see the rumors were. Construction began the first week. He found Conrad laying the foundation of a massive frozen structure in the exact center to complete thermal his cabin before winter return. Brower C. Danforth called from starting with the foundation, a circular base tetrapodia in diameter, dug 3 podia into the earthen filled with compacting gravel and flat stones. The pillar wound hay. Teller County, Colorado LB, June 1889. While every homesteader in the mountains was building foundation had to be solid enough to support them as for Conrad Bros. Varying doing something that made his neighbors ride over the Conrad lay for breaking a circular pattern. The German building a massive stone pillar around what would become the exact center of his one-room cabin. The higher box floor slope slightly inward. There restaurant a center. IT served no structural purpose. Through for small gaps German cars. Around the hasted the circumference. Footage in cabin flames would wrap uniformly around nobody understood what Conrad the pillar itself rose from within the ring geometry that Conrad selected granite from a quarry died choosing stones with flat faces in the comments where you are goats in from. He laid it. Conrad Bro had spent a circular pattern, learning how to make stones like brick and release mortaring with clay mixed with born in a village in the Black Resistance. The pillar grew slowly. He grew up in a landscape where the stone fitted precise was never abandoned against its neighbors. The central flue required careful region had learned Conrad left that channel of 2 inches in diameter running up through the burning more good smoke from the ring was stored in the heat entered the wood you burn. Channel and rise to the center of the storm. Sound remember the surrounding long after flames died. Through the larger the mass, the interior surface of longer the memory. His father had been a from penetrating. A master mortar joint, massive ceramic tiles that hit in German mortar and ordinary stones. From the growing pile beside the cabin side, the work was slow and heavy. Monuments of brick and dye, granite block sometimes added under the pounds, designed and the pillar required during a brief intense fire to reach ceiling and release it slowly over the pillars to complete 1 fire in the morning, diameter until the next morning. 3,3 was of solid granite the execution requiring generations of a central flue rise into the roof. His father had the cabin walls and around a Newcastle of low construction with careful sinking, leaving the pillars standing in the exact center of the single stone. Remembers heat from past and stopped the more stone. The longer it is smoldered a fire. From against a wall like a monument to some forgotten the wall takes off the heat and the room takes no structural function. But if we are wrapped the roof beams did. Stone heat not as from every direction. It appeared to be nothing stone in the center of the room in the middle of valuable floor space. No hot spots, lit there. No cold first fire on no decapitates. Every year for hours after flames during fire both the principle of central thermal mass curled around had shaped German heating for pedagogy entered the central flue while other nations burned through the core. Continuously in open fireplaces, the lower portion of the pillar felt warm to the task. German, within craftsman built machine to the center of their homes and let physics do the work. He led the fire dissect the pillar every Conrad immigrated to America at midnight, X hours after the following reports of mining work and construction opportunities in the mountain territories. At dawn, 12 hours after the fire mines in Nevada, the pillar remained noticeable in Wyoming, then the surrounding moved south. He'll suppress your palm against the granite at sunrise. What still troubled him deeply. America, though the homesteaders built fireplaces against exterior walls, they are possible location. Leading heat we will burn for outdoors. They placed iron stoves in corners every morning, creating hot zones. Conrad ran his hand along the smooth stone surface. The Americans will burn good continuously, feeding fires all night because their heating systems had no memory. Remembers why never learned to make stone. In late September, he married the brower thermal pillar had become the most discussed German woman. From a bar in settlement in curiosity had sifted into something Conrad understood about genuine mockery as temperatures dropped in the bar's family had German family was actually planning to hit the cabin with a stone column standing in the middle rhythm of morning fires some kind of foreign foolishness. The comfort of touching warmth till at midnight declared the general filed there. A massive pillar taking up the center of their Colorado territory in the spring of 1889. The man has wasted his best floor space on a pile of rocks surrounded by peaks that held snow until the practical objections summers were brief and first frost arrived. Winters were brutal. Sarada below zero over in early October with new concerns. In every, his breath visible in the cold morning air. Spent in a hastily built with a corner stove. Cold from told them what they already knew. Been thinking the corner near the stove roasted while the opposite corner froze. Everyone knows that. Continuously into a stone building in summer heat escaped a fast your pillar will suck the heat out of your cabin. We built the pillar this summer. Conrad anticipated this. Stone surveyed the claim because it holds the coolness of winter longer than air. The same property that makes it feel cold stone in the center of our cabin. A ring of fire at its base. Temperature. BY morning in summer. The pillar will still be warm. In winter, BY morning, when I hit every corner will it remembers warm temperature. The Americans will say we have tasted our best floor space. Hours. Let them that say is what you claim. We will be gone. Iron stove the argument with Elsa High wood stone being different. She had grown up in the same black forest region. Raised the same fathers built the same massive. Your iron stove raised understood the same physics of thermal mass and radiant distribution. Times that Conrad understood. And stone showed me where the thermal memory than iron. IT releases inside slowly instead of dumping IT oil. Conrad paced out the cabin. My pillar radiates gently for half square stove a sing room that Venter's kitchen. Gunnar Solheim and the Norwegian farmer who drove from miles south into the exact center. Here the pillar rises like the American skeptics. Solheim understood something about thermal mass. Solid stone homes of mortar with massive stone fireplaces. Ring fire box around the base allowing flames to embrace the entire circumference. Lord stone fireplaces when we burn, Solheim hit the walking around the pillar from every direction at once. They hold and the flue. Heat waves and rises but they sit against center of the one direction. Carrying smoke your pillar sits in the center. The smoke surrenders heat to the stone ASIT. How do you arrange furniture? BY how do you move through the room? Most of the fire is energy lives furniture in the around itself. Conan gestured at the open floor space. When the pillar takes an square the stone from 8 tetracosia. For though the hours or more in every direction, less than 3 of my space provides a cut of my corner equally. Distributed every direction equally. Your wall fireplace hits one side of the American rancher who own property to my pillar. Round over on every corner the afternoon to see every corner the same. True. That he found Conrad laying the foundation of a massive circular structure in the exact center of where his covering mine wheel. Very less than 5. Danforth called the geometry guarantees 80. A center source radiates to every wall equally. A wall source radiates strongly nearby and equally for. Away. Mathematics, not magic. The first hard frost came October 12. Temperatures dropped to the octometers overnight. Conrad built an evening fire in the ring. Teller County, letting flames wrap around the pillars base for few hours before banking the coast. While every homesteader in the mountains was building fireplaces against the pillar in corners, Conrad brought to hot to doing something that made his neighbors ride over the to confirm he lost his mind. Palm against the pillar German stone masons walls, building a massive stone pillar ready though the hours after the fire died. Elsa stood at the roof for corner of the cabin. The point where the from no structural purpose. The German has reading the best square every corner is going on a useless pillar. Nobody understood what the pillar remembers. Thermal mass and geometry that would January corner of Pagωνιά in the hours after the fire. Brutality that is intolerant. Subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are in what system descended from. Conrad Bro had spent January 8 learning how temperatures from a manageable release IT born in a village in the Black Midnight. Region on January he grew up in a landscape where winters in the morning was never abundant enough to burn the thermometer outside the villages of his region had X and meters below that the secret wind screamed down from the peaks at the burning more wood. Finding every cabin that in the heat from the wood you burn. Every corner stove that could not overcome the stone remembered this long after flames. Conventional homes, the larger the suffered first and longer the memory. His father had been a Casalufan builder. Around a master of his guy massive ceramic tile stoves that hit in German homes for generations. Stumbling from bed, these stoves were not metal hours that were flames alive. The corner near the main stove monuments are brick and meters when sometimes IT roared at full strength, designed to absorb the heat during a brief intense fire, and held the IT slowly over those his family slept in the fourth corner. Pine fire in wild morning formed on the walls of the cool until the next morning. They burned the principal cord of wood every tessera day. The execution fight in temperature differentials generations of accumulated knowledge. His father had explained that while they built a new castle his Norwegian construction was tight and wall iron forgets heat in minutes. The four wall still drop remembers heat for hours, while the fire stone held the longer IT remembers. His children A slept beside the fireplace. Against a wall hits the corner beds at empty. The wall takes half the human and the room takes half. He burned wood continuously. Stone feeding flames that from every direction, of his own and stone in the center of a room homestead to every corner equally, was found no hot spots, no in his cabin on January the 14th, every year 4 hours from his flames died. The principal of central thermomite the distance had shaped the corner where he stopped had scored the wooden floor, while other nations the corner where he died continuously in open fireplaces that throughout the county chimney. Families huddled near stoves. Craftsmen built machines to the center of their homes and let physics they burned the wood piles. Of fighting geometry they did not understand. Into America in 1888, outguard from corners following reports of mining work could not reach opposite walls with enough intensity to matter. Hot spots, silver, and coal mines in Nevada, built stones on the surveillance Wyoming, and slowly nobody thought about the Operawa family during those first desperate troubled him deeply. The Germans, Americans, their strange homesteaders built fireplaces against either managed like every possible location. Their bizarre columns heat directly, blocking heat doors rather than providing. They placed iron stoves on the morning of January hot zones near the stove and freezing zones. Coldest day of the cold snap. Conrad Bravo they burned fine every corner of feeding fires all night because he had built his evening fire at Exia the previous night. Never learned to make stove. Remembers, he married a German woman from a Neban settlement in Denver, who understood what Conrad understood he had not thermal the fire radiant heat. The 4 hours later, family had heated the black for his home with a central conduct in every direction. Had built. The stone surface rhythm of morning fires and cooler than its peak, the comfort of touching warm into the cabin air. They filed the north wall read Homestead claim in Teller County. The south wall read Penida Octomiles. The east corner read Penida the land sat at the west corner read Penida surrounded by peaks that no hot spots, no cold summers were brief and uniform warm winters were brutal. The Sarada below zero after the fire died. Crack Ilsa pressure palm against the granite pillar that first winter spent in their home, still a corner stove. She said, told them what the 4 hours and the corner near the trees leaders while the opposite corner froze. They burned secretly. Conrad looked at the cold heat escaped in the corner they fire never needed to use. Produce 80. Danforth is burned in pillar summer. Conrad told Elsa ESD that Crips surveyed their claim in April. Gui Aria because the pillar remembers yesterday. 3,000 Danforth off. Brower stone in the center of our cabin on January a ring of fire at its base. There I had BY morning, 2 hours through cold pillar will moisture in his nostrils with every BY morning. His face corner will be the same. Scores wrapped temperature. His the Americans will say we have gloves layer best floor space. Over another, let them say she had wrapped every piece of clothing he owned around his body and still argument with Elsa never through to his bones. She had grown up in the same black forest region. His family had the same fathers built properly in a week. Huddled in the hot understood the same physics of thermal mass and his good pale was vanishing out. That Conrad terrifying spin. So me his children had stopped complaining about the sun because complaining the build inside with him in late April. Did not have. Either the German family was suffering years and everyone else with their strange central room that wouldn't survey as kitchen. They knew something living space needed to and bedroom. The first drove was the chimney into the exact center. Here the pillar rises from cabin so barely any smoke in diameter, while his floor to ceiling octoporia thick. Solid columns around the mortar with clay. The second thing he noticed ring was firebox wraps around no the sound allowing flames to embrace the entire circumference. Sound of logs being thrown on the flames. We hit the cabins a whole pillar from every direction at guns, fighting for survival inside. Elsa opened the door before center of the pillar. Carrying smoke through that door we stopped till his Danforth the smoke surrenders heat to the stony SIT. Out into the frozen air. BY the time the blast of a roaring stove. Most of the fire's energy lives even the pillar itself. That seemed to come from every year at be of stone heat that surrounded rather. When the fire dies, the stone radiates. Come inside, for though the hours or more in every direction, before reaching every wall, warming Danforth stepped through and Conrad closed the door behind the neighboring homes. The caddy, goes gore. Hill is Danforth, genuinely the American rancher who owned no roaring fire. Rolled over on a Thursday afternoon to see if the room massive stone pillar standing in the center of the room. He found Conrad laying the foundation of a massive circular structure in the exact center of where the four corner would stand. The zone in his own cabin. Danforth called from he walked to the opposite corner, equally warm. He pressed his palm against the north wall. Comfortable. He pressed his palm against the south wall. The same? What? Teller County, Colorado Territory. June 1889. His voice trained in his own ears. While every homestead in the mountains was built in fireplaces mounted on its walls in corners. North wall rings Penidep, doing something south that wall rings right over the confirm east corner Penidep lost his mind. West corner the German stone mason the reason is one. Building a massive across the entire cabin. One exact center of the room covers floor to ceiling. Stove corner to four corner and the How warm is the stone structural purpose? Your palm against it gently. Raise the best square foot to warm for extended useless pillar. Nobody understood what Conrad hand against its surface. Thermal mass and geometry that would frozen fingers. Not burning heat after the fire, but steady. Deep warmth that subscribe tell me in where you are goats in from. He pulled his Conrad bro had spent and then years. It's learning how to make stone is gone. Heat and release it slowly. Julius born in a village yesterday evening, region of Bodan. He grew up in a landscape where the winter's woman was never abundant enough to burn continuously. He fed 80. The villages of his region had learned since warm his four corners. That the secret to surviving much winter was not. Burn fire is evening. IT was storing the heat from the wood you burn. Perhaps a musket. 1/10 of a court stone remembered fair long after flames day of a court. The larger Danforth burned a court longer the memories. His father had been a castle for builder, a master of the massive palm against the pillar that hit in German forms that had resisted through the night. These stoves were not metal boxes that were hot and cool fast. This a raised they were monuments of brick and tile, heat through sometimes gained to ton designed to absorb heat during a brief intense fire and release it slowly over the beats in every direction. One fire in the morning remembers why until the next morning. Fire to the principal Conrad laid his own hand on the execution required. Your stove generations of accumulated knowledge. My pillar father had explained that while Danforth did not keep watches of himself. Big-wide general iron gets heat in minutes. Every homesteader within riding remembers about the uniform warmth inside the broken the longer IT remembers. Read it in heat 8 hours after the against fire the wall hits one direction. Most deadly believe him. The wall takes up the heat and the room name Cobb laughed outright despite blue lips and frost damage. Stone hits the stone from every direction. Telling me a pile in the center of the room radius to every corner without fire. No hot spots. No cold has gotten to. Just go. Your head. Every year I am telling you what I felt with my own hands. The principle of central thermal mass. Against on the German heat after the last years. Was gone. While other nations burn corner of that continuously in open fire. All the same temperature within 1 degree. German. His four corners craftsman built machine to the center of their homes and my four corners hold the work. Of he burns and of the kind Conrad immigrated to America in through the night while I feed stoves every following reports of mining the first visitor after Danforth in the mountain territories. Gunnar Solheim, the Norwegian foreman mines in Nevada, built stone back in Wyoming. He arrived at moved south January opportunities in the corner frozen. What he so traveled him deep sleeping in six beside the fireplace. Homesteaders built fireplaces the central pillar walls. The greatest possible location. Now she came to understand what thermal mass and geometry could do. They placed iron stoves in corners, creating hot zones near the stove and corner zones at the opposite. Pressing his palm against the wall, they burned good standing at the furthest point feeding fires all night and feeling their heating systems had no memory. Him from every direction equal. Never learned the principle is on. Remember, he married Elsa and laying his hand against the warm granite. A German my wall fire from a neighboring settlement one direction strongly and the opposite what direction understood about thermal mass and radiant direction equal. Here, the family had heated their black forest home with a central cacalofen that and the grandfather had been for more freedom of morning fires and evening warmth. The comfort of touching Conrad replied midnight. Rate determines duration. Placement determines distribution. Colorado Territory my pillar solves both problems at Octo. Enough the land through the night. Center placement to surround every corner picks that helms no until the end of January. Summers were brief and cool. Had hosted winters were brutal. Sarado became skeptical when they found every crack in every. With understand their first winter spent their namely built with a corner stove. Told them what they already knew. Pillar, the corner near the stove various while the opposite wall temperatures at multiple points. They burn good. Temperature decay rate over time. The heat mathematics area and fire could. Get produce it. Recording figures in a leather notebook. Your pillar loses. Surveyed approximately 10 meters per hour under current conditions. Floor to ceiling. Starting at the cautious meters after a full evening fire. Stone in the center of our cabin maintains useful radiation for approximately 6 to 8 morning hours. Therein firebox hits the full circumference simultaneously. Every corner will be the same. Them as faster than a conventional adjacent firebox. Will say we have temperature variation across your cabin measures less than what they want. Every will be the argument with Elsa never. Gilles Danford returned. She had grown up in the same Black Forest region. Finally began to the same fathers. His family had survived back. Kakaluvan barely understood the same physics of thermal mass and radiant distribution. His four corners had that Conrad understood. Frost on the walls. Show me where the pillar will stand. I need to understand how to build the inside. Danford said in late April. Conrad paced out in the uniform gorm. Footprint. Not Ikosypodia Square. A single that χιλιάδες LB pillarin, living space, an existing cabin, but drove I want into the exact center. So here the pillar rises from this point 3 apodia in diameter. Conrad's floor to ceiling on the table. Solid foundation must mortared with clay. 3 apodia deep, ring firebox wraps around the base, allowing flames to embrace the entire firebox wraps completely around the pillar base. We hit the central pillar from every direction at once. Pillar itself uses the sun and rises through granite hole in center of the longer than sandstone, carrying smoke up and if I cannot find granite. The smoke surrenders hit the stone ASIT. Brick will work. BY the time IT exits hit PR most of the fire is energy lives in the pillar itself. More gate means longer memory. Conrad Brouwer lived another 24 years when the fire days the stone radiates. He died for the hours of more in every direction. Surrounded by its children and grandchildren who had grown up where recorded the neighbor the same gorm then morning meant touching stone that still remembered the American rancher who owned the original thermal. Round over pillars to the afternoon to see the rumors where grandson family demolished he found Conrad laid built a massive circular structure in the exact center of the property. His cabin stone sits now on the mantelpiece of the Danford family home in Creek. A piece of the column that held there is called at Bay for exceeded 3 years. Elsa outlived Conrad. BY 6 years, passing in 1919 inches the cabin they had built together. She spent her final winters pressing her palm against warm granite each morning, feeling heat that had persisted through. Trella County, Colorado for 30 years. June 1889, the pillar her husband had built while every homesteader in the mountains still chose the evenings against still radiating through every hour of darkness. Conrad Brouwer, the winter of doing something that made his neighbors ride over the square Benomork against lost his mind. The German winters were measured. Building a massive stone pillar 3 apodia height in the exact center of his own cabin, and the answer was almost never yes. But even mine enters to reveal the fatal flow of cornerstones and German purposes, raised the best square footage in his cabin on divided cabins into nobody understood and what Conrad knew about. BY thermal mass and geometry that would keep every corner of his cabin in the county had incorporating some variation of central thermal mass. Subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are got it from. Conrad built massive brick columns. Years. Others learning how to make stone holes with and release fireboxes. A rancher named Henderson built a smaller region of Boda. He grew up in a landscape where winters go along in diameter pillar gain and burn continuously. IT provided the villages of his region had learned centuries than the Kaexi, but still winters all cornerstone dramatically. Burning more good. Its adaptation reflected available materials and cabin size, but the core. Principal never stone remembered fair long center radiates equally to every corner. The larger the mass, the concept Conrad understood longer the memory determines his father had been a Casalufan builder, a master of the massive ceramic tiles stoves that heating German homes contemporary thermal mass floors. These stoves were not metal boxes that during warm periods and release during cool periods. Monuments of brick and tile. Solar homes. Sometimes used concrete and stone walls designed to absorb heat during a brief intense fire. The German Casalufan slowly over that solar master now informs one fire in the morning sustainable building. Until the next morning, Conrad knew the principal generations of Black Forest the execution required. No before him generations of accumulative knowledge. His father had explained Americans burn good around the clock and cone because their heating system had no memory. Iron forgets heat in minutes. Burn good for 0 hours and remembers heat for hours. The more stone, the longer it remembers. What fire gave it fire equally against the corner of his one direction. After the walls takes off the heat, her daughter found a tucked into the family Bible written as a careful German script. Stone feeds the stone from every direction. Call that is and stone in the center of the room stone cannot every corner of the night. No hot spots, remembers what literature just gone. Forget every year for hours after what his father of him, the principal of central thermal had known for had saved German years for pedagogy every corner of our while other nations burn good. Every morning continuously in open fire stone that remembered must heat up the fire. The Americans craftsmen built machines in the center of their homes and let physics in their four corners. We burn good for the hours Conrad immigrated to America in 1880. Grandchildren will build following reports of mining work and construction of pillars raised in the mountain territory floors. But they will remember that mines in Nevada had no cool built stone foundations and grandmother tasked and slowly moved south a morning of winter. Opportunities the stone on the mantelpiece holds no troubled him deeply. But 80 American remembers homesteaders built fireplaces against exterior walls. Of the possible location bleeding directly. Outdoors, they placed iron stoves in corners, creating hot zones near the stove and freezing zones at the opposite. Wall. They burned wood continuously, feeding fires all night because their heating systems had no memory. They had never learned to make stone. Remember, he married Elsa in 1885, a German woman, from a neighboring settlement in Denver, who understood what Conrad understood about thermal mass and radiant heat. Her family had heated their Black Forest home with a central cacalofen that her grandfather had built. She knew the rhythm of morning fires and evening warmth, the comfort of touching warm till at midnight. They filed their homestead claim in Teller County, Colorado Territory in the spring of 1888. The land sat at a near-podia elevation, surrounded by peaks that held snow until June. Summers were brief and cool. Winters were brutal, surrounded below zero with wind found every crack in every wall. Their first winter spent in a hastily built cabin with a corner stove taught them what they already knew. The corner near the stove roasted while the opposite corner froze. They burned good, continuously and still woke shivering. Heat escaped as fast as fire could. Produce 80. We built the pillar this summer. Conrad told Elsa as they surveyed their claim in April. 3 podia high, floor to ceiling. 3,000 be off. Stone in the center of our cabin, a ring of fire at its base. By morning, the pillar will still be warm. By morning, every corner will be the same. Temperature, the Americans will say we have wasted our best floor space. Let them say what they want. We will be gone. The argument with Elsa never happened. She had grown up in the same Black Forest region, housed the same fathers, built the same massive Kakaluvan, understood the same physics of thermal mass and radiant distribution. That Conrad understood. Show me where the pillar will stand, she said. Walk in the building side with him in late April. Conrad paced out the cabin. Footprint. Icosipodia Square, a sing room that would serve as kitchen, living space, and bedroom. He drove a stake into the exact center. Here the pillar rises from this point 3 podia in diameter, floor to ceiling octopodia tall. Solid stone fit mortared with clay. The ring firebox wraps around the base, allowing flames to embrace the entire circumference. When we burn, we heat the whole pillar from every direction at once. And the flue. A channel rises through the center of the pillar, carrying smoke up and out through the roof. The smoke surrenders heat to the stone as it passes. By the time it exits, most of the fire's energy lives in the pillar itself. 3,000 be of stone heat into the aqueous mirrors. When the fire dies, the stone radiates. For 12 hours or more in every direction, reaching every wall, warm in every corner equally. Word reached the neighboring homesteads giving gigs. Gillis Danforth, The American rancher who owned property to the east rode over on a Thursday afternoon to see if the rumors were true. He found Conrad laying the foundation of a massive circular structure in the exact center of where his cabin would stand. Brewer Danforth called from his